She watched from the sick room. The snow whirled past, like flocks of shadows in haste, flying on some final mission out to a leaden, inalterable sea beyond the final whiteness of the curving shore, and the snow-speckled blackness of the rocks, half submerged. But near at hand on the trees the snow was soft in bloom. Only the voice of the dying vicar spoke grey and querulous from behind. By the time the snowdrops were out, however, he was dead. He was dead. But with curious equanimity, the returning woman watched the snowdrops on the edge of the grass below, blown white in the wind, but not to be blown away. She watched them fluttering and bobbing, the white, shut flowers, anchored by a thread to the grey-green grass, yet never blown away, not drifting with the wind. As she rose in the morning, the dawn was beating up white gusts of light blown like a thin snowstorm from the east, blown stronger and fiercer, till the rose appeared, and the gold and the sea lit up below. She was impassive and indifferent, yet she was outside the enclosure of darkness. There passed a space of shadow again, the familiarity of dread worship, during which she was moved oblivious to Kossuth. There at first there was nothing, just grey nothing. But then one morning there was a light from the yellow jasmine which caught her, and after that morning and evening the persistent singing of thrushes from the shrubbery, till her heart beaten upon was forced to lift up its voice in rivalry and answer. Little tunes came into her mind. She was full of trouble, almost like anguish. Resistant, she knew she was beaten, and from fear of darkness turned to fear of light. She would have hidden herself indoors if she could. Above all, she craved for the peace and heavy oblivion of her old state. She could not bear to come to realize. The first pangs of this new parturition were so acute. She knew she could not bear it. She would rather remain out of life than be torn, mutilated, into this birth, which she could not survive. She had not the strength to come to life now, in England, so foreign, skies so hostile. She knew she would die like an early, colourless, scentless flower that the end of the winter puts forth mercilessly, and she wanted to harbour her modicum of twinkling life. But a sunshiny day came full of the scent of a mezeran tree, when bees were tumbling into the yellow crocuses, and she forgot. She felt like somebody else, not herself, a new person, quite glad, but she knew it was fragile, and she dreaded it. The vicar put pea flour into the crocuses for his bees to roll in, and she laughed. Then night came with brilliant stars that she knew of old, from her girlhood, and they flashed so bright she knew they were victors. She would neither wake nor sleep, as if crushed between the past and the future, like a flower that comes above ground to find a great stone lying above it. She was helpless. The bewilderment and helplessness continued. She was surrounded by great moving masses that must crush her. and there was no escape save in the old obliviousness, the cold darkness she strove to retain. But the vicar showed her eggs in the thrush's nest near the back door. She saw herself, the mother thrush, upon the nest, and the way her wings were spread, so eager down upon her secret. The tense, eager nesting wings moved her beyond endurance. She thought of them in the morning. Then she heard the thrush whistling as he got up, and she thought, "Why didn't I die out there? Why am I brought here?" She was aware of people who passed around her, not as persons, but as looming presences. It was very difficult for her to adjust herself. In Poland, the peasantry, the people, had been cattle to her. They had been her cattle, that she owned and used. What were these people? Now she was coming awake. She was lost. But she had felt Brangwyn go by almost as if he had brushed her. She had tingled in body as she had gone on up the road. After she had been with him in the marsh kitchen, the voice of her body had risen strong and insistent. Soon she wanted him. He was the man who had come nearest to her for her awakening. Always, however, between whiles she lapsed into the old unconsciousness, indifference, and there was a will in her to save herself from living any more. But she would wake in the morning one day and feel her blood running, feel herself lying open like a flower unsheathed in the sun, insistent and potent with demand. She got to know him better, and her instinct fixed on him, just on him. Her impulse was strong against him, because he was not of her own sort. But one blind instinct led her to take him and have him, and then to relinquish herself to him. It would be safety. She felt the rooted safety of him, and the life in him. Also, he was young and very fresh. The blue, steady livingness of his eyes she enjoyed like morning. He was very young. Then she lapsed again to stupor and indifference. This, however, was bound to pass. The warmth flowed through her. She felt herself opening, unfolding, asking, as a flower opens in full request under the sun, as the beaks of tiny birds opened flat to receive, and unfolded. She turned to him, straight to him, and he came slowly, afraid, held back by uncouth fear, and driven by a desire bigger than himself. When she opened and turned to him, then all that had been and all that was gone from her. She was as new as a flower that unsheathes itself and stands always ready, waiting, recuperative, receptive. He could not understand this. He forced himself, through lack of understanding, to the adherence to the line of honorable courtship and sanctioned licensed marriage. Therefore, after he had gone to the vicarage and asked for her, she remained for some days held in this one spell, open, receptive to him, before him. He was roused to chaos. He spoke to the vicar and gave in the banns. Then he stood to wait. She remained attentive and instinctively expectant before him, unfolded, ready to receive him. He could not act, because of self-fear and because of his conception of honor towards her. So he remained in a state of chaos. And after a few days, gradually she closed again, away from him, was sheathed over, impervious to him, oblivious. Then a black, bottomless despair became real to him. He knew what he had lost. He felt he had lost it for good. He knew what it was to have been in communication with her, and to be cast off again. In misery, his heart like a heavy stone, he went about unliving. Till gradually he became desperate, lost his understanding, was plunged in a revolt that knew no bounds. Inarticulate, he moved with her at the marsh in violent, gloomy, wordless passion, almost in hatred of her, till gradually she became aware of him, aware of herself with regard to him. Her blood stirred to life. She began to open towards him, to flow towards him again. He waited till the spell was beaten them again, till they were together within one rushing, hastening flame. And then again he was bewildered. He was tied up as with cords, and could not move to her. So she came to him, and unfastened the breast of his waistcoat and his shirt, and put her hand on him, needing to know him. For it was cruel to her to be opened and offered to him, yet not to know what he was, not even that he was there. She gave herself to the hour, but he could not, and he bungled in taking her. So that he lived in suspense, as if only half his faculties worked until the wedding. She did not understand, but the vagueness came over her again, and the days lapsed by. He could not get definitely into touch with her. For the time being, she let him go again.